Turning now to the global shipping crisis, the Port of Portland is working to ease some of the backlog in the supply chain. Fox 12's Sarah HURWITZ got an inside look at the port's Terminal 6 today.
Well, here at Terminal 6, the port says it is very busy. Its chief operating officer says carriers are now making additional stops in Portland to get around the backlog. At major ports like Los Angeles, miles and miles of ships waiting. At the Port of Portland's Terminal 6, no line, but there's no shortage of work.
We're actually quite busy at T6 in the container facility. There's really not a lot of room for additional service, although we're obviously pursuing additional service all the time.
Wednesday, we watched crews loading and unloading the SM Ningbo, a container ship which starts in Asia, making stops in North America. Dan Pippenger, the port's chief operating officer, says in the midst of a global shipping crisis, companies are getting creative to get around some of the backlog mess. And Portland's becoming an option.
Sometimes we get vessels that are what they call a feeder vessel. In other words, it's in service from Asia to Southern California, but they're adding an additional call up to Portland to get around some of the congestion. Portland plays a role in providing relief and support that allows people to get around that, and certainly is a benefit to our local economy.
And while there are some restrictions on the size of ships that Terminal 6 can take, he says larger ships are making their way to Portland too.
They're coming in not fully loaded, and they're stowing the cargo on it in a way that we can reach it all. So we're seeing ships much larger than we thought we'd ever see. And it's working out pretty well.
Pippenger says this concept is something the port's been thinking about for a decade as ships continue to get larger and larger. He says it's been a challenge for medium-sized ports like Portland.
But what we're seeing is shipping companies can figure it out and bring larger ships in and work them here at Portland.
He says this is partially because of the global shipping crisis.
I think the other truth in the industry is that they've made ships so large now that they have a lot of large ships and not a lot of small and medium-sized ones. There was a real rush to upscale. Well, those ships still, there's only so many ports, right? Those ships still have to go somewhere. They're trying to employ these ships, which cost, a lot of money, and they want to make them work. So they're having to use them in routes that they didn't think of because there's overcapacity in the mainline routes between Shanghai and Los Angeles, for example.
And the chief operating officer says that this helps local businesses not just during the holiday season, with better options and access to get their goods in and out of market. In North Portland, Sarah HURWITZ, Fox 12 Oregon.